my family's like, what's happening? I'm like, just doing a drop test.
And that story is all about why medical device and pharmaceutical companies rarely will hire somebody from the cosmetic space.
Projects come to me that aren't in my wheelhouse, I can refer them out to the right people.
That's the middle one on your wall behind you, isn't it?
That is the middle one.
Right above kicking asphalt.
I was like 2 big giant suitcases for a month, but I was flying around the country with them. And I was like, wow, this commute that I'm doing is horrible.
This career can take you everywhere and pay for it.
I always felt like that was like a big success story for me. Like I got that extra little money so I could move. Try out industries you don't expect. Like I had no real interest in cosmetics or beauty, and I love cosmetics and beauty.
Hello and welcome to Packaging Speaks, where we talk with packaging professionals about their career development and their perspective on the packaging industry. Today, I'm joined by Danica VanBeek, who's a degreed packaging engineer from Michigan State University with more than 20 years of experience in the industry. Hello, Danica, and welcome.
Hi, Christian. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Super excited for this conversation today. We've known you for a long time. But I definitely feel like your experience in the packaging industry and specifically in cosmetics, which is a desirable space for a lot of young packaging engineers I know, that I feel like you probably got a lot of insights to share. So really excited to get started.
Awesome, me too.
Talk to me about let's start from the beginning. How did you get into packaging?
So I was really into art in high school. I've always been kind of a creative person, and I was really eyeing going to art school. And my parents said, you should probably consider maybe a more like normal school. And so I did. So I just kind of like started thinking about other things. And I ended up at Michigan State. It's about 30 minutes from where I grew up.
Did you pick the school before you picked the major?
I did.
Okay.
I just decided I was going there. I was like, this is where I want to go. I'd been on campus a few times as like a middle schooler, as a high schooler, and I don't know. I just decided to apply. I didn't apply to any other schools. But when I started, I knew I had my loans, and so I was like, I need to get in here and out of here. And so I was like, I need to start with a major. I can't go in undecided. Like I didn't feel like I could do that. So I started looking. I looked at their website at the time and I found packaging and I thought, this is cool. It sounds kind of interesting. And I'm like, it sounds like math and science. It sounds like creativity. I'm going to give it a shot. And so
you literally picked the major from reading about it on the website.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. That actually, I think that's a new one. I have not. I've
I don't know how other people find it.
Who were surprised to end up in packaging, but not by Googling it. So that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I got on Michigan State's website and I was like, what are the majors? And I just started clicking through them, and I thought it looked interesting, and so I was like, I'm going to sign up for it. I figured first semester I took Packaging 101, and like, if I don't like it, then I can just now's the time I can switch. But I loved it. Like
loved it
from day one. I loved it.
Okay. What did you do? Anything do you feel like in college to set yourself up for your first job? Well, what were the keys to success before graduation?
Well, obviously I did my best in my classes that I could. I also was.
Did you have?
I internshiped at Coca-Cola.
Okay.
And I loved it. I had a great internship experience. I also was part of the student chapter of IOPP at Michigan State. I am still a member of IOPP. I'm actually a lifetime certified packaging professional.
Is that that's the middle one on your wall behind you, isn't it?
That is the middle one.
Right above kicking asphalt. What's kicking asphalt?
Yeah. That is my team for my Bike MS event that I do each year to help support the National Multiple Sclerosis Society.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So, internship in the beverage industry and involvement in the student chapter of the IOPP and that got you set up for a good employment coming out of school.
I feel like if nothing else, like being at Coca-Cola gave me an idea of like what the real world job
Yeah.
situation looked like, because I had what I would consider a lot of just like college jobs. And so,
Yep.
I mean, I was doing like working at the gym, working at the local school, just all sorts of random things. But the opportunity at Coca-Cola was awesome because I worked as part of supplier quality,
Okay.
and it was just like a great group where there were certain things that we had to work on as an intern. Like you worked on bringing back quality, you measured color, but that team was so great about finding the things that interested you the most and kind of like letting those be your main tasks, and then the other ones like you would work on them, but they really let you focus on the things you found the most interesting. So
Good.
I loved that experience. And then when I
For the
came
record,
back, yes,
for if there are students listening,
yeah,
when Danica was in college, a one good internship was a pretty good result. If you're looking to get to a top tier company right now, most companies are looking for two internships and two
yeah,
good ones. So that's changed in the last 20 years.
it's
So
so amazing. It's so
yeah,
amazing. Yeah, you're right. Because it
I
was
mean,
like everybody was like, I just need that internship.
there's more competition, there are more kids in the program, and I mean, my understanding is there are plenty of companies out there that actually would love to have packaging interns, that there are not still not enough to go around, so there's definitely opportunity to get good internships, and you should take those, because having two on your resume absolutely sets you apart when you're applying for the
Yeah,
job.
yeah. I at the time it was kind of like you did an internship like your junior year, so that when you were like in the middle of your junior year. So I'm sure there are students out there doing them in their sophomore years now, or doing one. I
Yeah.
know I've had interns that have worked for me where they had just graduated and they hadn't found their full-time position yet, and they were interning after.
Hmm.
So
I've seen that
yeah,
too.
that's interesting. It really has changed a lot.
So graduated from school, and where was your first job again?
I got my first job out of school with Estee Lauder. I worked in the package testing lab
Okay.
out on Long Island, and it was kind of random. I was hoping to go back into food, honestly, after my internship. That was not in my cards. So I ended up finding a logistics position in the package testing lab, and I am so glad that is where my path took me, because I learned a lot about package testing, which I use as part of my consulting business today. So
For sure.
what a lot of what I learned in that lab 20 years ago, I still use today, helping brands, test and with their quality and package development.
Okay. I guess let's talk through then a little bit of career development. You got some good lab experience at Estee.
Yep.
And then you went into home appliances.
Well, so like I said, I wasn't planning on going into cosmetics.
Uh huh.
So I was there for about 2 years, and I was trying to decide like, what do I want to stay in cosmetics? Do I like this? Do I like this part of the industry, beauty? Like, do I want to be part of beauty? And I
Right.
had an opportunity presented to me to be the packaging engineer for Bosch and Siemens Home Appliances in North Carolina, and North
Okay.
Carolina was a state I wanted to live in at some point. And I was like, you know what? I don't know if cosmetics is my life. So I decided to make the move, and I went down to North Carolina and I worked in home appliances for only a year. Turns out it's a lot slower than beauty, but I
Right.
learned a lot in that year.
Okay. It's mostly protective packaging, right?
Yeah, mostly protective packaging. We did a lot of testing. Worked on cost reduction projects. So one of the main project that I worked on when I was there was taking basically a package for their freestanding ranges, so like the stove that's in your kitchen.
Yep.
That cost about $20. The package that was set up, and we worked on cost reducing it down to about $10. So it was about a $500,000 a year savings.
Wow.
So
And what was the end result on the product? What was did you have damages in the product? Did you reduce damage in the product? Was it maintained? How about that end of it?
so the main part was to reduce the cost because it was just heavy and there was a lot of weight, and
Okay.
and you still are making sure we go through and do all the testing to make sure that your products are not getting damaged, right? So when I went, we were trying to use this stretch hooding machine and it was putting a lot of pressure on the package. And so there was like foam and corrugate and pine wood boards
Yeah.
so that you could use the stretch hooding. But the other part that was happening was in that particular facility and in a lot of others, they were only using clamping trucks and not forklifts. And so you had to be able to clamp the appliances and move them. And so you had to protect against that. And so part of the redesign was like, okay, we removed all the wood. We went to paper wrapped rolls. So they replaced the wood that way. We were able to clamp and do all of that, but get rid of the wood. I mean, the wood was the major cost driver there.
Sure.
And then also reduce the amount of, we were using huge polystyrene, like side panels.
Mm-hmm.
And we reduced that down to basically a base and a few pressure points where the clamp trucks would come in. Awesome. So you're still protecting the product, but we reduced a lot of the foam there as well.
Awesome. And robust testing experience, robust new package development experience, setting you up for what, Joico?
Yeah, so I enjoyed home appliances, but it was slower.
Too slow.
And I had someone reach out to me, and I had kind of started putting feelers out for, here are some states that I want to live in, because I was single and young and mobile. And
yeah.
So I basically was like, well, I'm going to start looking. And someone reached out to me from Joico, which was part of Zotos International at the time. So mm-hmm. East Coast based. Joico, ISO, Sensience were in California with their marketing and creative teams.
Okay.
And I was like, I want to go work in hair care, and I'm going to be working in package development, which at the time, and maybe, I mean, it depends on the company you're in, like what package development covers, but I would basically like set up testing plans, do sourcing, color matching, I would consider it the fun part of package development. And yeah. So I moved to California.
Cool.
I moved to California and I got to do the thing I'd been wanting to do.
This industry, this career, if that's something that motivates you, I want to try living in California. I want to try living in the Carolinas and all that. This career can take you everywhere and pay for it, right? I mean, you had paid relocation for all those positions, right? I assume.
Yeah.
Were they generally at that level right now? Best practice is they'll give you some kind of sign-on bonus usually and say or here's the $10,000 relocation allowance.
Yeah.
And then whatever you don't spend, you can put in your pocket. Is that pretty much what your arrangement was?
Let's see. Well, when I started at Lauder, we got a cash amount to move with.
Yep.
And then when I moved to North Carolina, there was a relocation. It was just a relocation. So whatever, they covered the relocation, nothing extra. And then I drove down.
Yep.
And then when I moved to California, that was a bigger move. And so they covered the relocation. And because I had to do some East Coast flying at the very beginning, they actually also transported my car. So that was
nice.
That was an interesting moving experience because I basically was living out of like two big giant suitcases for a month, but I was flying around the country with them.
Okay.
And then my car showed up like a month later, and then my stuff showed up like 2 weeks later after that. So it was interesting, but yeah, so that was all covered. And part of that was just negotiated, right? Like some of it was like, I couldn't afford it. So I asked. There were pieces of it where I was like, well, what about this? And they're like, we can't do that, but we can do this other thing. So always ask. I always tell people just
Absolutely.
the answer is always no unless you ask.
Yep. And
So
now, I mean, or if you're asking, right? Generally speaking, if you're asking just because you want more money, the answer
right,
might be no. But if you
right.
are asking and I need more money because it's going to cost
Hmm.
more there, or I'm going to be commuting across a bridge and I got to pay a toll every day, or
Yeah,
if you can articulate a reason,
it
usually
definitely
they'll
helps.
find a way to work with you.
Yeah,
Right?
so when I moved from North Carolina to California, it was kind of, in some respects, it was a lateral move, right? I went from being like packaging engineer to package development manager, but from a level perspective and experience perspective, they were pretty similar. But the cost of living in Southern California is obviously much more than North Carolina.
Right?
And so when I got my original offer, I was like, "Oh, that like I really wanted to come out here." And I was like, "Wow, I want to come out here, but that like I can't move because I can't move from I couldn't the cost difference was just off." So I went online because I could go online at the time and like did some research on apartment costs and just odds and ends so I could compare because there's cost of
Big
living
time. Lots of,
calculators, and I always tell people use them, and just to compare like what my utilities would look like, what my car insurance would look like, and also my apartment cost. And so I was able to take that back and say, you know, from what I can tell here and what I've looked up, that if I really want to move and I do want to take this position, but I would need about this much, and they were able to match that. But to your point, I was able to back it up and not just say like, well, I need more money.
right. Yeah.
So
Awesome. Well done.
yeah, I always felt like that was like a big success story for me. Like I got that
Absolutely.
extra little money, so it made it so I could move.
Absolutely. I think that's a solid lesson and valuable information for the audience. So thanks for that. The moral of the story is don't be afraid to ask,
Yeah,
right? But you will have more success if you can justify it, if you have some kind of reason for the ask. Usually, if a company wants to hire you and you're being reasonable, they will find a way to make it happen.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
okay, so where are we now? You're coming up through the ranks, getting more cosmetics experience. Little bit. Is there more about Joico you feel like we should know, or do you want to talk about the dental industry? You want to gloss over that? What's the next valuable lesson in the career of
Next,
Danica VanBeek?
well, I actually, even though I moved to California for Zotos,
Yeah,
uh, for that Joico position, I actually was laid off due to some restructuring that happened. There was some new upper management that came in shortly after I did,
yeah.
and there was some restructuring, and there were two packaging engineers in California, and then they were like, "Well, we only need one," and so
And
uh,
how long was that after you moved out there?
like a year and a half.
Okay.
I wasn't out here very long, and so I two things happened. One, they offered me a severance, or I could choose to move to Connecticut
Hmm.
and take that packaging engineer, do the packaging engineering and development there. And so I really had to think. I mean, I had to think through that because I wanted to move out here, but I
Yeah.
also really liked my job, and I am all about like secure financial situations. And I end up, obviously I'm still out here, so I ended up choosing to stay here. Um, and I will say this, like I was bummed that I got laid off. Zotos handled that situation in the most professional way I could have imagined. Like
Awesome.
they basically said, I mean, I had a nice severance. It was like I think I had 4 months of severance.
Great.
I think it was. But they also said if I needed relocation, they actually would pay for it, which is like unheard of.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
I was floored, but it was nice because when I was looking for my next position, which ended up being in Southern California, but when I was looking for my next position, I didn't have the stress of wondering
Yeah.
how like if I was going to have to move, like how that was going to go down or anything. So that but like I did have to choose to either like have a job or not have a job, and so that was So it's a little tricky, but I'm glad that I stayed out here. I ended up my next job was in still in Southern California. It was in med devices. Again, not beauty, so like a much slower pace.
Right.
Really great work experience working with the Zimmer. It was Zimmer Dental.
Okay.
They also had like Zimmer Medical, which is in Indiana. So I worked with those teams, and that was great. It just wasn't for me,
Sure.
and I ended up. Someone reached out to me about a position with Stila Cosmetics, and I was able to get back into beauty. I think I feel like it was November, late the fall 2006, I think.
And that story, ladies and gentlemen, is all about why medical device and pharmaceutical companies rarely will hire somebody from the cosmetic space, because you get into medical
They're different
devices,
paces. They're
well,
different paces.
this is too cold. Where's the marketing team? This isn't really. I don't want this, and they end up going back to something more consumer.
They are both great work environments. They're just different work environments.
It's not for it's a personality difference. Right? Everybody's got their own environment they like, their own pace of work that they like, and there's definitely a divide between the pharma and medical industries and the consumer driven spaces. I mean, for sure, packaging is a small community and everybody knows each other, but there's a divide between those two communities.
There really is.
Measurable.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to cosmetics, back to personal, or is it hair care now?
Back to cosmetics.
Okay.
Back to cosmetics. So I got back into with Stila Cosmetics. They had been sold by Estée Lauder at that point. So they were with the VC. And I was able to come in and again do like really interesting package development. But one of the key things that I did when I first got there was going over bills of materials and assembly instructions, that basically a bunch of data had to be migrated from the Estee Lauder companies to the new VC systems. And since I was familiar with the Estee Lauder systems, I knew what the data was supposed to look like when it showed up at the VC. Yeah. So I did a lot of that kind of work. So bills of materials, assembly instructions, just making sure data is clean, specifications, that kind of thing. Right. Yeah. And then I did a short stint with in dental, consumer dental, so Breath-Rex, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But basically since then, I've been working in beauty, skin, hair care, moved around a lot out here. So
yeah, so I guess, I mean, yeah, you've got a couple of employers in there, but I think maybe at this point, would you say it's appropriate to talk about at what point in this development did you start thinking about going out on your own?
It's funny. I always thought I would kind of work my way up through the ranks and just kind of like, I don't know, end up managing a packaging group or a larger packaging group.
Director, setting budgets.
Whatever. I don't know, something. And then, things in California, I mean, they're changing, but even now, like we have a lot of startups, we have new companies, small companies. They don't all have the resources for a full-time packaging engineer or somebody to do package development. A lot of times, those companies really lean on their vendors, and their fillers to kind of like provide a lot of that support. And so, because those positions weren't there, I think I probably started thinking about it long before I realized it. But I worked. I'm trying to think. In 2013, I was laid off very unexpectedly. And so I was out of work for about 5 months, I think, 5 or 6 months. And during that time, my husband and I talked about it a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I was like, no, I still want to do this. Like, I think I'm going to keep, like we were still moving around. We didn't have any kids yet, anything. And, so maybe like 10 years ago, I maybe started thinking about it a little bit.
Okay.
I went and I worked for Johnson & Johnson on Neutrogena. That was like my next thing, and that was a great position. I always wanted to work for them, so I got to, which was amazing. During that time, I had daughter. And then I was like, wow, this commute that I'm doing is horrible.
Yeah.
And so like I started really thinking a little bit more about it, and I then moved to Dermalogica, and I started their packaging engineering department
Okay.
in 2017 because it was closer to home, and I had this cool opportunity to start a department again, which I'd done in a few other places. Um, and it was just great. It was a great opportunity. I then realized that between my schedule and my husband's schedule, I'm like, somebody is going to have to be the person who's like
Yeah.
getting my daughter from school. Like we have great resources. Like we had a great daycare, all these things. But we also realized like as she got older, we needed to like have that logistically kind of figured out. So we talked about it. I've been at Derm for about 2 years, and I just decided to just do it. Like I made sure our finances were in a place that I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically just said, I'm going to start consulting.
Did you lay any groundwork before you left? Or was it?
I mean, I made sure at that point, like I had a team in place. So like I kind of like made sure that, I mean, like the Dermalogica team was set up. Right. I didn't like reach out to, I didn't tell anybody I was going to do it.
You didn't have your really, first client set. You didn't have furniture. You didn't do letterhead.
No.
Nothing. Okay.
I should have. I probably should have. Honestly, like I figured I was going to end up with like a little bit of a gap and a break, and I kind of needed one at that point.
And you did the homework to know that you could afford one, right?
Yes. So I did that. I also like, I shouldn't say I didn't do anything before I decided. I called around to probably like 2 or 3 other consultants that I knew of in Southern California. Okay. I talked to a number of like my sales reps that I'm good friends with in my network, and just kind of like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? They kind of, like just kind of like feeling out the situation so I could figure out like how much I thought I was going to be able to charge, how many hours a week I needed to make sure I got in, how long is it going to take until I'm kind of like feeling comfortable in it. So I did my homework, but I didn't try to set up any new client. I didn't try to set up my clients before I left.
Right.
Like I've always been very specific. Like if I am working for somebody, I'm working for somebody. Like good. If you're my employer, you have me 100%.
Yep.
So
at least while I'm on the clock for you. I mean,
what's that?
At least while you're on the clock, right? Not
100%. Yeah. I mean, like I am there. Like that. That's just how I work. Okay. Like so. Yeah. I mean, and kind of I didn't want to leave them hanging because I know again like there are a lot of packaging people, but finding the right fit, right? You said like sometimes it's just a fit, like finding the right person for the right work environment can be tricky. And so basically while I did give my notice and I let them know I'd be leaving, I think like in 4 to 6 weeks or something, I also let them know like I could come on and be a consultant while they gap filled. And I did that for a little while. Okay. So while I left being a full-time employee, I did fill in that gap for a little while they were finding my replacement.
Okay.
So that's an option.
So your first client was your old employer?
Yeah. And then
where does when you've made that leap, where does your first success come from?
For me, what I have found is that because I have changed employers a lot, like we've talked about, but I have found that my success and the consulting I've been able to do is really because of the relationships that I built throughout my 20 years before I decided to consult. Right. And so like it always makes me super happy when like a past marketing person reaches out and says like, hey, we're having this problem and I thought of you. We're having this packaging problem and I think that you could solve that problem. Or Or having somebody say like, oh, hey, you know what? I was talking to so and they said that you're the person we should go to. And that, like, it makes me really happy.
Yeah.
Um, I think of myself as a fairly humble person. I mean, I know a lot. I've had a lot of experience like testing and developing and project timelines and all that. But the bottom line is like I just love helping brands and teams like get things in order. So if you come to me and you're like, I want to do this thing, I'm like, all right, let's figure out how to do it. Right? Or, oh, we're having this problem. Let's figure out what's causing the problem because it might be a simple fix, right? So I
Yeah.
love that stuff.
So you're doing Van Beek packaging full time now?
I am. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Primarily in the personal care cosmetic space?
Primarily. I do have a couple other clients in some kind of random industries like agriculture. But
Okay.
again, that's because people that I've worked with in beauty and med devices and home appliances, like they've gone other places and
Sure.
they know that I'm consulting, so they reach out. And a lot of so you can switch between industries, right? I think you have to be like smart about it. I think you have to understand like what the challenges are to doing that. So like the work that I do for the agricultural company, when I
Mhm.
do that work, it's a lot of that's about like shippers and carton sizing and artwork and those kind of things are very similar across industries, right? Like the things
Right.
like the specs of corrugated board don't change just because I'm in beauty versus
Right.
agriculture. So there is some work that is more challenging to switch over, and there is some work that I can do that it just naturally makes sense to do it.
Are you enjoying it? What are the biggest challenges you feel like to owning your own business?
I think the biggest challenge is just always making sure that there's a workflow.
Yeah.
So I am someone who I like to have something planned for each day. Like I know I'm going to be doing some testing, but I like kind of a schedule. So like it's a little hard sometimes because I have months where I'm slow and have months where I'm really busy. The really busy months, I'm like, this is awesome. I'm always got something on the calendar. The slower months, sometimes I don't want to say I panic because it's probably not the right word, but I'm like, oh, is next month going to be slow too?
Yeah.
And what I have found is a lot of times it's just remembering to reach out to people and remind them that you are still here because sometimes uh, maybe you're contacted and a brand changes and they've moved on
Sure.
and so I might have other contacts where they'll say like so and so's left, you need to contact this person, so they don't even know the work that I've done in the past, so that
Yeah.
can be a little challenging. But just making sure there's like consistent workflow, I think, is the main thing that I find challenging.
When I start getting frustrated or want to step away, or it's amazing. The only reason the phone rings here, not that the phones ring here, the reason my or my computer makes a sound, is because I'm generating activity. If
Right.
I stop, the phone goes dead really fast. Like there's
Yeah,
nobody sitting out there saying, "I wonder if Christian needs some business." You've got to go do that
exactly.
every day.
Yeah.
So I mean, that for me, that's been a huge mindset change. It's like I've been working here for 20 years, but it's really been only the last 3 or 4 that the client management and the growth of the business has been my responsibility at all. And it's taken me a minute to switch
Yeah.
to mindsets. It's a
Yeah.
big change.
Well, I've been consulting for 6 years in June,
Okay.
and it has literally taken me like the first 5 years. I was like, okay, things are happening, but in the last year, same thing. I'm like, I need to be reaching out to people all the time. So
Yeah.
I'm like trying to make. I know there are tools out there for reaching out to your clients and tracking things, and I probably should be more technological in that way, I literally make myself notes like call this person, like these are
Yeah,
my 10 people.
for
I'm
sure.
setting reminders on my phone like, hey, in 3 months, remind me to schedule lunch with so and so. And then after I have lunch with them, like remind me in 3 more months, like
Yep.
just to kind of like keep those relationships fresh and just remind people I exist.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm here with my testing lab. I'm here with my, my engineering mind. So,
Do you rent space at a lab? Have you bought some equipment of your own?
so I have a small home office, and I kind of converted it. So I've got my workspace, but I have a space that used to be a closet, and so it's kind of like it's a little testing area now. So I have a vacuum chamber, a torque tester, a
We're
small
not going to get a
oven.
tour.
What's that?
We're not going to get a tour.
No, not today.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up my computer and take you into the closet.
No, we'll lose this internet connection that
Right.
I worked so hard to get. But I do. I have just like, and it's just small, right? So, like, I'm doing testing in a way where some days the oven's turned on, some days the oven's not turned on. It's like just depends on what. Like, I do some drop testing, like lipsticks and things like that. My I have a because we're very official over here. I have my laundry room is right next to me, but it has this a hard like concrete floor. It has
Yeah.
like a hard floor. So if I need to do drop testing for kits or boxes and things, all of a sudden I'm like dropping stuff. My family's like, "What's happening?" I'm like, "Just doing a drop test."
Awesome.
So yeah, but I just have I would call it a small lab,
Okay.
and I have the basic things that cover most of the tests that people want done.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What? So I mean, after 6 years in, you've got a profitable operation. What's next? Do you want to grow it? Are you happy being on your own? I mean, you start looking at growth and hiring people, then all of a sudden it's gone from something that's giving you more freedom to maybe something that's taking freedom away from
Yeah.
you. Um,
Um,
what
well,
are your objectives?
so my objective is to keep my personal flexibility and but also grow my business. So I I have enough work right now, but I know that as like for instance as my daughter gets older, as as time goes on, I'm going to have like more time,
Yeah.
right? And so I don't necessarily see myself growing my like VanBeek packaging into multiple consultants. That's not something that I see, but I have found a few other consultants or different consulting companies where I've been starting to network a little bit more to just kind of
Okay.
increase like people's visibility of me, but also knowing a bigger network of consultants. So when projects come to me that aren't in my wheelhouse, I can refer them out to the right people. That is something that I am a big believer in is networking and connecting the right people together. And so I've been trying to do a lot more networking
Do
as
you
well.
know? Do you know Lauren Laspina? I think that's how she pronounces her name.
I don't think so.
Lauren is the founder of an organization called is it the Packaging Co-op,
Okay.
and she's got there's about 20 professionals, some packaging, some manufacturing, all technical people that have
Mm-hmm.
started this co-op together. And they've all got their own entities, but they pitched in to cover some things like insurance costs, and they're funding a
Oh,
lab
that's interesting.
together and that kind of stuff too, so that everybody can still continue to run their own business and
Yeah.
keep their own entity, but also have help covering some of the things that nobody really wants to do. You
Yeah.
all want to be packaging people, and you don't want to deal with the back end of insurance and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
She's doing some of that stuff. It's invite only. You know, they're trying to control the quality and all that
Well,
things,
yeah.
all that stuff. But I think if I were a consultant on the
Yeah.
western half of the country, she's in the Denver area. If I were out on the western half of the country, um,
I
it'd be
wonder
somebody
if I do. I don't think I know her, but I think somebody that I know is friends with her because if you're saying she's in Colorado, I think I've talked to. That's interesting. Okay.
Okay. Anyway, I don't know to be name dropping right here in the middle of the thing, but you know, it's
Hey,
might be a worthy contact for you.
awesome. Thank you.
So let's see. What's if everything goes according to plan? What's Danica's life in 2030?
Oh, in 5 years from now. Um, let's see. 5 years from now, I think I maybe have a consistent like 10 clients at a time instead of
Okay.
five because I'm at five, which is comfortable, but I'd like it to be closer to 10 and just maybe traveling more, getting out to some more shows, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Um, I've
Sounds like
kind
you're
of
on the glide path you want to be on, though.
I think I'm getting there. I
Good for you.
think like sometimes I think about like for instance like my lab, the little mini lab that I have, right? It's very informal. It really gives you just like some quick results. We can do like regular testing, but it's not like a certified lab. So sometimes I've looked and thought like maybe I need to look into that. So maybe it's renting an office space. Like maybe it's growing out of my home office because I have enough space that I need more lab equipment. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Okay.
So I'm kind of seeing where the next year or two takes me and
Sure.
deciding from there, I think.
What about? I mean, from where I'm sitting, you know, you've accomplished an awful lot. You've had a successful career in a lot of packaging spaces, and now you're sitting at home running your own business. What would you tell somebody who's getting ready to graduate with a packaging degree from MSU today, or May's just right around the corner? We got some May graduates coming up. What would you
And it
tell them?
sure is. It sure is. I would say to be open to new experiences. Um, if someone approaches you, or even if you're not looking, because Christian knows he probably calls people, but
All the time.
I'm always, whenever I've ever gotten a call and somebody says, "Are you interested or are you open to a new job?" Even if I'm not truly interested, I always take that call. I always want to hear what's out there. I think it's useful to see what's out there. I think it's good to, sometimes those phone calls have led to positions that I've ended up taking.
Mm-hmm.
Or, or sometimes those phone calls have led to me going, that is not the job for me, but I know the right person. And so I say, like, be open to those phone calls. If you can, be open to moving and relocating for a number of reasons. One, like different work environments are great. Sometimes the places you go to live are not what you expect them to be, and sometimes that's good. And sometimes you're like, hey, I'm out of here. But being in different places and experiencing new ways and different ways of living is very eye opening, and it's just good for personal growth. I think it's great. And that gets harder as you get older. Like once you get married, it gets a little bit harder. If you get married, if you decide to buy a house, that gets harder because now you're moving around financially. That's a different position.
Yep.
And especially once you have children, if you decide to have children, that also changes. And so I say right out of school, if if you were in that position where you happen to be single and not married and not bound to a mortgage, like
Yeah. Go see the
definitely
world.
like go see it, see what's out there, like go places you don't expect to go, try out industries you don't expect. Like I didn't expect to start at Estee Lauder. I had no real interest in cosmetics or beauty, and that is where I have found I love cosmetics and beauty. Like you don't know what
Yeah.
you're going to end up enjoying. I mean, Coca-Cola was supplier quality. I've used that experience at Coca-Cola through my entire career working with suppliers and understanding like just like different levels of quality expectations, how you manage it. So, you know, take those experiences, think about like how they can apply in other areas. I've had positions where I was the package development manager, but I worked as part of supply chain and operations, and I did warehouse moving projects. And the package I was developing outside of my normal stuff was like, how are we? I was sizing boxes to move stuff across the country and like pack up a warehouse in 2 days and get it to Kentucky. So you just don't know what you don't know. And there's so much to learn. And the more you know, the more flexible you can be in your career later. If you're like, I only do this, then it really limits you. But if you're like, hey, I also know how to write bills of material. I understand bills of material. I know how to write specifications. I know how those things link up in the warehouse. I like if you can kind of like figure out how all of those things connect, like you become a really great resource.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great insights. What didn't we talk about that we should? You got a ray of sunshine for the world, Danica?
I think that everybody should really network. Like I had something really cool happen in the last couple weeks, and this is not for me. This is not me tooting my own horn. I just think this is like awesome. So when I say take the phone call, see what happens, I had someone reach out to me about a position, a full-time position, which I'm consulting, and that is not something I want to do. I said, tell me about it. They told me about it, and I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Maybe I can figure out how to consult. And then as I was sitting at my desk, I remembered that I had a friend tell me that they were let go from their job in January. And I was thinking about it, and I went, wait a second, where is this job? And it turns out that was a perfect connection.
Awesome.
I connected these two people, and he now has a job set up. So network with people, care about other people, think about like how you can help other people. I just think that's so important. Like IOPP has great networking opportunities. Yep. There's CEW in beauty. There's on the West Coast, there's BIW in beauty. There's these great networking opportunities. And like, even if you just find one that you're involved in, like meet people and see how you can help them.
We've known each other for a long time.
A long time.
I feel like we reconnected, has kicked this thing back off again, our relationship back off as a result of a networking event the IOPP hosted.
Yeah.
And it's weird for me to say it was the Women to Women event, but I was invited. PACSTAF had just become corporate sponsors of the IOPP, and they invited us to drop in and tell everybody who we were and stuff. And it's like, oh my gosh, Danica, I haven't talked to you in years, and
I know.
And now it's been every few months, and here we are making a podcast.
This is great.
Yeah, I think it's been incredible.
Never know.
You don't ever know. And I think this has been an incredibly educational conversation. I think that there's a lot in here for students. There's a lot in here for people getting ready to consider a job change or think about going out on their own. Congratulations on what certainly has been thus far a very successful career. And thank you so much for giving me an hour of your time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. Then I think that'll do it for this edition of Packaging Speaks. I'm your host, Christian Ellis. Thanks so much for coming, Danica. Give us a like, give us a follow. Please follow PACSTAF's LinkedIn page. Like Danica said, it's all about networking. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you again on the phones.